Okay, today's video we're going to talk about something called combined audience segments on Google Display Network, or using these combined audience segments to create a custom audience for targeting on Google Display Network, or in other words, an easier way or more refined way of explaining that would be running banner advertisements or text advertisements on different websites to get customers for our business, and using a specially crafted audience where we're basically targeting multiple ways. Customer must be this, this, and this, and this in order to see our ad. And that's exactly what the combined audience segment system or tool within Google Display Network does for you to be able to help you scale your business on Google Display Network. So I'm going to go through what this actual tool does. Of course, this is available to everybody who wants to run Google Display ads, and Google Display ads is through Google Ads itself. And but you know, it's just a tool. There's plenty of information out there that says how to set this up, like, you know, physically click on this, click on that. That's not what this video is about. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I go into the strategy, how to use it to make money. That's what we'll be covering in today's video. Specifically, as you set up your targeting, it's right in there with the rest of the other stuff. Combined audience segments is just another targeting option, if you will, but in and itself, being one targeting option can be multiple things added together, or must be this and this, but also is not this, or this and this. Sorry, this and this, or this and this. So it could be a combination of many different things. And with that, it could be people who have searched for this but haven't searched for this, bought in this recently, searched for this, seen this competitor's thing before recently, and so forth. I won't go into all the combinations right away before I get into the intro here, but there's a lot of different ways to do the targeting in Google Display Network, specifically using this combined audience segment tool, to the point where everybody who's wanting to get customers online, particularly for B2C businesses or selling to consumers, not to businesses, where display network advertising works, you know, quite a bit better. But in general, for anybody out there who wants customers, you can use online banner advertising or online display advertising through Google Display Network to find customers. It all comes down to, can you target narrow enough to find where your buyers actually are? And that's where custom audience segments specifically come in handy to narrow down targeting beyond what Google Display Network offers as targeting options by itself. When you start saying it must be this and this, you get more refined, and ultimately you're looking for an audience of people that you can target, that at least 1% of the people in there would be buyers of your product or service. And if you can get there, you'll make money. So anyway, with that said, we'll get into it. Good results on Google Display Network is dependent on your ability to find a narrow enough audience that is going to work. Like I mentioned, 1% or greater of the group of people you're targeting would be buyers. You're good already. And so with that, how can we find a targeting option that's going to work for that? And by itself, that in itself, if you're talking about Google Display Network's default options for targeting isn't enough, we got to go more refined. We could use the custom audience segments to combine multiple targeting options that Google has, or bring in data from another place into Google Display Network and use that data and some of Google's Display Network options, targeting options together. And now you have a really refined audience that will work now. I'm going to give you a few examples of how we built campaigns for a design school, a granite installer, an Italian restaurant, using a combination of these different targeting options, and specifically with combined audience segments, and to show you really how to take advantage of this and build an actual working campaign for your business. So you could run a campaign targeting similar audiences and use many observances to see what would work within that, to find out what you would actually do in this custom audience segment tool here. So again, custom audience segments allow you to target somebody who has multiple or on multiple targeting option lists that Google has. Again, you could be this and this, or this or this, or this and this and this, or this and this but not this. You can do any combinations of things that you want with combined audience segments. The reason why I mentioned similar audiences, so if you're in a situation today where you've been doing Google ads of some sort, maybe even just search ads for a while, respectively with that, Google will allow you to target people who they think are like the people who come to your site already, i.e. these similar audiences. And within that, you can set up, in addition to that, what are called observances. And the observances are not targeting options. Observances are what you think match what your customers should be like or are like, in which when you run a campaign, it'll tell you, did a person match that targeting option or did they not? So if you are selling, baseball jerseys or baseball uniforms, if you want to call it that, and you wanted to set up a campaign targeting baseball jerseys, you may have to say, oh, people who buy baseball bats are the type of people who would buy baseball jerseys, but I'm not sure. I know the campaign that we're targeting that targets people who are looking at baseball jerseys or have looked at baseball jerseys works, but we want to expand. So what I can do is set up a observance for the people, or for the targeting option, or for people that are looking at and interested in baseball bats, and see if my jersey ad or ad selling jerseys will work for people that we're considering buying baseball bats. And so without actually targeting the people deliberately looking at the baseball bats, if they happen to be also, if the person now was interested in baseball jerseys, but they also were interested in baseball bats, it'll tell us, of all the people we're targeting with our campaign moving forward there, of the people that also matched the baseball bat interest list, how many people bought, and what the opportunity is if we targeted that list as well. So what you can ultimately do here, and I have done on a number of different occasions, is if we don't know what kind of custom combined audience segment to put together, we'll take a campaign, maybe we're running a similar audiences campaign, and we'll set up 500 of these observances. And we'll just see, if in terms of the baseball jersey example, everything baseball you can think of as an observance, and then just watch to see what happens in terms of trying to scale the display campaign. Within the 500 observances, there'll be 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 that actually end up with the ROI that's as good or better than the ROI that we're already getting. So then we know we could target those as individual targeting options, but beyond that, the ones that were not quite as good in terms of the cost per conversion, it was okay, but not quite as good as what we're getting now, we could set up a combined audience segment now with combinations of those targeting lists together. So the way that this works is through mathematics. Ultimately, if somebody's interested, going back to my previous example about baseball jerseys or baseball uniforms, if somebody is interested in a baseball bat, they may not be interested in a baseball jersey. But the fact that they're interested in a baseball bat and baseballs together, they're actually statistically a little bit more likely than if they were only interested in baseball bats or only interested in baseballs to be a buyer of a jersey, if you will. If they're interested in bats, balls, cleats, now if you combine the three, they're a little bit, they're a little bit more likely to be interested in a uniform, given that they're looking to buy multiple of those items, not just one. And the more lists that are relevant that they're on, the statistical likelihood that they're going to be interested in buying my item, which is not the same as the items that they're looking at, goes up and up and up. So those lists by themselves won't be any use to us, because by themselves, we're not getting the ROI that we want from them targeting our uniform pitch or an ad for those people. When they get it on enough similar audiences that are not as good, but when you combine them together, Now we have a workable targeting option that's going to bring us a way to be able to scale our previous campaign that we were running, targeting people that were more directly relevant, related and interested in our direct product, because they have those set people are so much interested in buying everything baseball that it'll actually work. We can actually sell a jersey to them or uniform to them, if you get my point. So that's something you can do to figure out how to set up a custom audience segment that's going to actually be profitable for your brand. So knowing how to set it up is one thing. The money is in knowing how to use the tool to strategy-wise to make money, and that's what everybody. That's where the the real money comes in. So that's one way to be able to do it. But that assumes, of course, you're already running a campaign or are willing to run a campaign. Which, if you don't know how to run a campaign right now, maybe you target people that Google thinks is similar to the people who've been to your site, and then setting up these observances and see what sticks, what hits, if you will, of the conversions you're getting, of all the 500 observances that you set up, which you would recommend a similar amount as that, because there's no limit in the observances that you set up in that regard. You'll find what are the targeting options that Google has that would actually seem like it would bring in a profitable customer. And then instead of going after the similar audience anymore, because that might not be profitable, through running the similar audience campaign, you found out the targeting options that Google has by having those options all set up as observances that will be profitable, and then you can just start to run targeting at those individual targeting options that you found through when they were set up as observances would actually draw an ROI for your campaign. So with that said, another way to find how to actually make a custom audience segment for your brand that's going to work to pull in profit for your brand and have like 1% or greater of the people on your targeted list actually want to buy your product or service, so that the cost of running the ads will pay for itself, given the higher your click-through rate on your ad, the lower your cost per click will be, and the higher ROI will be. So we just want to get as high of saturation of people that would buy on our targeted list that we're targeting, and it gives us the more and more likelihood that we can actually make money from our targeting. You could also go to, assuming that you have a Google Analytics setup and you have a remarketing audience set up itself, you can go into the data, the audience section of Google Ads to see itself, to look at the custom audiences that you have set up already. And then you go to, on the left-hand side of your screen, your data segments. Within there, you can actually see different things that Google has found out about the people that regularly go to your site. Or you could also do, under your data segments, you can actually select on the top part of the screen people who just converted into a lead or converted into a sale, and then Google gives you stats or information on what traits make those people who've been to your site or became customers already unique, to give you an idea of how to target your display campaigns, because that's what it's for, but also more specifically how to create a custom combined audience segment to combine those things to make it more and more likely that that's going to be profitable for you, given they're on multiple lists that are all relevant to people that come to your site and buy normally, therefore more likely to work. So, and they actually have in-market segments and affinity segments for you to look at. So they tell you, of the people who are in market to buy something, what they're in market to buy if they've been on your site or if they've been a customer in the past. And then for the affinity, what kind of traits did those people have that been to your site or have been a customer through your site before? And you can use those pieces of information again now to build up options to target those customers. Or if it doesn't work, you create a combined audience segment with those traits in there together. And if they've hit all of those things that make them unique to the type of visitor that comes to your site and buys, then you can run it. You can make sure that they have to have all those traits together, and therefore your ad won't show up for those people. And then therefore you have a chance to make display advertising work. So under the Audience Manager in Google Ads, you can find your data segments on the left-hand side of the screen, and then you can see the in-market segments and affinity segments that are unique to the people who come to your site and or convert/buy on your site, to see as to what to use on your targeting campaign, what would make the most sense. And it'll be very interesting to you, because you'll find out certain things like people that are traveling are the type of people who buy, which you would have never known that, or people who are in college, you just would have never known that are the type of people on average, more than the average general public that Google has tabs on, that buy from your site. And then you can use those as targeting options. So, but beyond that, to know what to do to set up a combined audience segment that's going to have your perfect cluster of people that are going to be so saturated with buyers that the cost to get in front of them is minimal compared to what you're going to get out of the people buying, if you will, given every time your ad shows essentially costs you something. Even though you're paying per click, you pay more per click. If your click-through rate on your ad's lower, the higher the relevancy of that ad that you have toward the person that's seeing it, increases your likelihood that you're going to profit from your ad, your display ad. One thing you can also do to figure out how to do your targeting there on Google Display Network, as it is also relevant to combined audience segments, is you can use data expansion companies like Experian. So Experian, I'm talking about the Experian credit reporting agency. And if you're wondering what the hell that has to do with anything, Experian is a data company, pretty much just like Google. People think Google is a search engine. Yes, it is, but it's a data company. People advertise through Google Display Network because they have access to data. Experian has all the consumer data, and they sell that data to third parties like Google, like other people too. So with that said, you can go to Experian with your customer list, similar to like you could have done up here under the Audience Manager and under your data segments part of Audience Manager, which Google gives you that data to you for free. You can actually pay to take your customer list and find out other traits about those customers that normally do business with you through your site to set up as potential targeting options on your display campaign and or custom audience segments, where you can combine those things that make your customers unique together to increase the statistical likelihood that somebody who sees an ad by you is going to be able to want to jump at that ad and jump on the offer on that ad. So Experian is the one that I would recommend, but you literally speaking can take your customer list directly to them. You can search for Experian data expansion service, and you'll find what I'm talking about, and you just give them the list of email addresses and the customer names, and they come back and they say, of the people on your list, of all the data segments that we track, which we track thousands of data segments, the most common thing that all the people on your customer list have are they play basketball, they like to eat at Italian restaurants, they're married, they enjoy magic, all this weird shit that you're not going to know anything about from your customers because you don't ask your customers this type of shit on a regular basis. So, and it would be weird too. Whereas the Experian, you can pay for that data, and then you can use that as ammo to run a Google Display Network campaign on Google Display Network. So if you get my point. Like I said, this is very similar to what Google's providing here under your data segments under the Audience Manager. You're just paying for even more data, and the data though the Experian's going to get you is going to be well beyond the usefulness of what Google's going to provide you by default. Google provides good data, don't get me wrong, but if you want to take this seriously, go ahead and spend the money and get the extra information from Experian to help you run your campaigns. They could, by the way, do things as well. Data expansion, if you have an email address, they can help you find the person's cell phone number. There's a lot of things that can be done by data expansion itself, but the main thing is, for me at least, is getting that juicy data to know how to target somebody who we know already buys from our client here at our PPC agency, so we can target them on the display network and get in front of those same type of people. So that said, that's another way to come up with a combined audience segment that's going to work for your brand. Another thing you can do moving forward here, you can actually profile your salespeople to ask them why your customers are buying itself. So you go to your salespeople and you say, hey, Bill or Johnny or Sarah, what is it that when people say that they're buying our furniture, why are they buying our furniture? And you just start taking notes. Oh, well, they're moving, or their parents are coming, or whatever. And you just start trying to learn about what are the motivations that stem or that precede a purchase, and try to use that as information to put together a custom audience segment or a targeted audience on Google Display Network to make your display ads match up with the real people that will be buying what you have. And just knowing that somebody is a typical moving by itself isn't a good targeting option. But when you combine the fact that if you're trying to sell furniture and a lot of people buy furniture when they move, the fact that they move and the fact that they have been researching furniture lately, and the fact that we know people that buy usually are parents, and we combine the fact and blah, 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 now you're getting to the point where you're making it so much, your statistical odds of getting in front of a person who's likely to buy furniture in the near future becomes so great, the cost of running the ad and getting it in front of the people that you're targeting becomes profitable. So anyway, you could profile your salespeople. I would also tell you to go and look at your sales email itself, look at your customer service email data, look at your review data, look at your competitors' review data and your same direct competitors in your space, and get to learn inside and out why the customers buy if you don't know it already. And try to use that cumulatively to stack up a combined audience segment that's going to work to get you that super, super, super targeted prospect that's going to just, print money for you from here on out once you've got that set up and you've got a great ad to match it. And with that, as you get more and more targeted, the ad that you have can be also a lot more targeted as well, which is why it works so well as well. I mean, not only are you getting in front of perfect buyers that are like perfect matches to like the type of customers you don't really get, but because this person that is on this list has to be moving soon, and the list or the combined audience segment you created, you can put an offer on there that says, hey, moving soon to be mover sale, or people that are moving soon are getting a discount at our furniture store. And you can speak directly to them, which you can't do that when you're targeting more broadly, which makes it even more of an opportunity and works even better and makes you even more money. So, but as you're researching your customers through your salespeople, your sales data, in terms of your email data, your reviews, you can find out things like, the people that are buying, is it because they're moving soon? Like the example I gave before. Do they have low energy? Is that why they buy your product or service? Are they in college? Is that a marker for somebody who typically buys your product or service at a high rate? Or just, if they're in college, what you're ultimately looking for here is, are they in college? Are they more likely or less likely than average to buy? Okay, more likely. Well, how much more likely? 10 times more likely? Okay, that's perfect. Once you start adding that with another thing that makes a person 10 times more statistically likely to buy from you, and another thing that makes a person 10 times more statistically likely to buy from you, the math works out. It's 10 times 10 times 10. So 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 10 is 1,000. Now, with those three things combined, the person that fits all three of those molds makes that person that you're targeting 1,000 times more likely to be a customer and therefore a good prospect than the average Joe on the street. And if you can get that to 10,000 times more likely, you basically are good enough. So anyway, with that said, or actually 1,000 to be safe, but in reality, but if you get it past anywhere past 1,000 times more likely, it's extremely good. So anyway, are they in college? Is that a marker that makes them more likely to buy? greatly more likely to buy. If they're just 1.5 times more likely to buy, that's not really a big deal. If they're 5 times more likely to buy, that's great. 10 times even better. And then, but even then, even if they were 3 times more likely to buy, if you stack that with 10 other things that makes the person 3 times more likely to buy, now you're still able to work with that. So you may need less targeting options if each thing makes it much more statistically likely for the person to buy, or you may need lots of things together if each thing makes them only a little bit more statistically likely to buy. Another marker that you may look for would be things like, have they been near a helipad? I know that seems random, but we've talked about on this channel how in the personal injury space, I've dealt with it, and it's common in that space. If you're wondering what people are doing, they will get beacons set up specifically, and you can also do this through pragmatic advertising networks where somebody that's near a helipad, you could put them on an audience list, and you can get their mobile user ID, and you can take that mobile user ID and you can import it to Google Ads and then target therefore somebody who's been near a helipad. So if you're trying to target, it's the digital equivalent of ambulance chasing, if you will, which is not technically legal, but and when I say I did it, I talked to people and worked with those people that they were doing it, not me. So just to be clear, I'm not doing it directly, but it's heavily going on in the personal injury space. Anyway, with that, so you could they have digital beacons that can be set up. So if your phone's just near this looks like a rock, it picks up your mobile ID and then stores it in a database, and then that information goes to a company that sells that data to like personal injury law firms that would need it. And so what are places, in other words, that they're near or at geographically that would make them much more likely to be a customer, as a way to stack up your perfect custom audience segment that's going to work for your brand and for your display campaign that you're trying to run. With that said, have they looked at a competitor? Are they researching a competitor's product or service right now? Which through custom intent audiences, which is a separate thing, you can create an audience that specifically dictates and looks for if somebody's searched for a competitor in the recent past or been to the competitor's site, which you can do either one of those with the custom intent audiences. And if it's a product we're talking about, I will actually go down to the product level. And if somebody's been looking, if I'm doing this, if I'm trying to do a competitor targeted display campaign where I'm targeting people that are interested in our competitor stuff, I will write down all the model numbers of all the all the products that compete with our client's product, and then put those into an audience. So not just if they're searching for that competitor that sells products that compete with our client's product, but if they're searching for those individual products, I will make sure that they're on a targeted list that we can use to target that person either directly or through a combined audience segment itself, to try to build up an audience segment that's going to be statistically significant enough to be productive for our brand. So you could do that. That might be one way that you do this. One component in a combined audience segment that you use to power a display campaign. You could also ask if they've recently or are they a recent customer of a customer or of a competitor. So what I mean by that is your competitor, going back to that again, it's one thing to target somebody who's been researching a competitor's product or service or solution, because that's great in itself, because we don't have to target somebody who is looking for a sales training service. We can target somebody who's looking into an individual sales training service itself, which means that person's more likely to buy because they're people that start out at the top of the funnel, as they say. They start looking for sales training services. We're going to use that as an example. They may never actually go to buy. If they actually get to look at individual sales training services by individual vendors, they're a little bit more statistically likely to buy, that they got that far into the sales process. So if we could target a person that's looked at an individual competitor solution, it's going to be more profitable to target them than the person who's just looking at sales training services as and just getting into the general idea of it, if you will. So with that said, if we take this concept step further, if we can get access to a list of all the customers of our competitor, that would be fantastic to target them. Assuming you have to buy whatever we sell more than once, that would be great. Obviously, we can't normally do that, but what we can do is we can target indirect competitors. But even then, you can actually a lot of times really target the direct competitors' customers by going through a third-party data broker. One example of this would be Nextmark data lists. You could type in Nextmark mailing lists in Google and find them, and you will find essentially a smorgasbord of different data lists. We're talking about lists of email addresses and customer names of people who bought mostly any category of product or service out there. If you sell your women's clothing, the best thing to do would be to target somebody, when we're talking about display advertising here, somebody who's bought women's clothing from another directly comparable vendor of women's clothing in the recent past. And when I say recent, we're talking about within the last 30 days. Even better would be somebody who's bought multiple things from another women's clothing outlet in the last 30 days. And the more that they've bought, or more frequently they've bought in the last 30 days, so there's two things there. The closer, the shorter amount of time it's been since they've bought from a competitor, the more likely it is they're going to buy from you, because they're in customer heat, as I call it. They're in the mode of buying. A lot of times consumer behavior dictates that people, when they're buying, they usually buy in chunks. They're ready to, and maybe a lot of times it's because they have a whole bunch of money come in at once and they're ready to blow it all. But a lot of it just comes down to they're in a buying mode, they're in a manic mode, or whatever. And so if you can get in front of somebody one day after they bought from somebody in your category already, that's a perfect time to contact them. And then going and looking at that consumer's past altogether, the more times that they've bought from your category, the more statistically likely they'd be willing to buy yours. If they bought 15 classic cars in the past, if you sell a classic car, you damn well want to target that person, not the person who's bought in one. And so when you combine those, if you could target the guy who's bought 15 classic cars and actually bought 2 classic cars in the last month, indicating this guy is just like a maniac, that's like the best of the best. And so with these data brokers like Nextmark, like I'm telling you about, you can actually and dictate all of this stuff that I'm talking about. It's called hot lists and frequency. And so you could say, I want somebody who's bought a classic car in the last month and they're a multi-buyer, meaning they bought more than once. And they'll get you the list of classic car buyers that they have, they'll whittle it down to just the multi-buyers who bought in the last 30 days. And you can take that list, that email list that you get from them, upload it to Google, assuming you spent $50,000 lifetime in ads already. You can upload that list to Google, and then you could use that as a targeting option in and itself, or you can add it as a part of a combined audience segment again, and say, going back to my classic car example, yes, I want to target somebody who's bought classic cars from some of my other competitors recently, but also has recently was looking for new classic cars to buy on Google, which makes them even more statistically likely to buy. And so, and that would be a common thing. That would be really profitable for us to do in our display advertising efforts. Somebody who's recently searched for something, indicating they wanted to buy, and then and tying that together with somebody we know's bought before, means they're just about ready to buy something, and that's the type of person we want to target. And so there's not a lot of people to target within that, maybe, and some people that are listening to this video would shoot it down. But the riches is in the niches, as they call it. So the riches is in finding what's that unique set of things, that signature of things that make up a person that as soon as they do these few things in a row or match all these individual traits in a row, that they're basically going to buy, and we'll get in front of that person all day long. That's what you're trying to do here. So anyway, to make up a combined audience segment, one of the things that you have on that list that the person has to have or match in order to be targetable by your display campaign once you've created the custom audience segment, it could be somebody who's recently purchased from a direct competitor or indirect competitor, like I was just mentioning there. And that can be done for women's clothing, like I said, classic car buyers, pretty much any category or thing that you sell, you'll be able to find a customer list out there. And you want people who bought in a lot and bought in recently, if you're going to do it, 'cause that is worth the money every time. And then in terms of doing research, going back to what we were talking about here, going back to people, you're trying to research what your customers like so you can target people like them in the future by using a custom audience segment to do it. You could also technically look, have they recently been to a gun show? So is there, I mentioned, is there a geographic place that they're near, that if they're near that place, it makes them much more likely to buy, i.e. personal injury space, somebody that's near a helipad is way more likely to buy personal injury law services. In a slightly different situation, we were talking about geographically, if they've been to a trade show in our space, you could see what the factor is, how much more likely is somebody that goes to a trade show in our industry, how much more likely are they to buy than if they didn't go, and then try to work that out. And that's actually pretty hard to work out in itself, but you can think about that, and if you don't know, you find out what you don't know through trial and error. You put, if you're selling guns, you can't sell on Google itself, but if you were doing a trade show for home improvement goods, like people that want to put windows in their house and siding and stuff like that, you could put that in your targeting. So if somebody, you're selling that siding, you could say somebody looking for siding and has been to a trade show. In order to do that, it would go back to the email list thing, like I said. You can actually go, and then with that, you may not be able to find this email list at Nextmark anymore, but you can go to a trade show, and I've talked about this in a separate video specifically, but you go to the trade show and you go to the vendors and you say, I want to buy your opt-in list. So usually all the vendors try to get people's name and all that for, from the people they talk to so they can build their own email list. Well, you can just rent their email list from them for so much a name, like 10 cents a name, or more like $1 a name if you're talking about a lot of different spaces, but $1 a name, I'll pay you $3,000 to get all 3,000 names you collected from this trade show. And then that email list, you upload it to Google, and that can be one component to your combined audience segment that you use for targeting to narrow down your targeting enough to get to where it's profitable, like I was saying. So that's the general idea behind creating a custom audience segment for Google Display Network ads that's going to work and be profitable for your brand. You got to figure out through the research of your customers what it is that's going to make that your customer profile and their signature what makes it unique, and supplement that with paid sources like Experian and going through Google's free data that they give you, and setting up observances in your Google Display Network campaign to ultimately see things that you couldn't see through these other methods. Of course, you could set up a combined audience segment campaign through all the research you did, then set up your observances and find out even more using Google's data. And then those observances those individual targeting options that are set up as observances that you find that make a person even more likely to buy than what you have, you can add that to your combined audience segment from your observance list and make that combined audience segment even more powerful. And the idea is, let's get that combined audience segment narrow enough that we have an acceptable ROI from the campaign we're running. And once it is, should make money for years and years after. So it's a lot of work initially to get it working, but once it is, it's pretty much autopilot. Once you got an ad, a display ad, and a targeting option that will work, it works forever basically at that point. And your competitors aren't going to be able to catch on to this, so it literally will pretty much work on autopilot from now on. So anyway, with that, I'll give you a couple examples, like I said here, that I was going to give about other markets where we did this in, so you can come up with your own ideas for your own market here. And so one example I want to give right away off the top here is for a design school. So this client had actually, it's a graphics design school. So if you're learning how to do web design or just graphics design and stuff like that, with that, Google search advertising for people looking for graphics design schools is pretty much limited. There's not a whole lot of people, at least yet, searching for that in and itself. It's not minuscule, but it's not very much, and it's pretty competitive. Pretty competitive, but mostly it's just you can't scale with it, which is why you, by the way, do display advertising on Google Display Network, because in a lot of markets, local markets as well, there's only so many people searching, and that's all you're going to get. And then from there, you have to be happy with what you're getting, or you got to figure out a display network campaign that will work. And with, or Facebook, of course. And the stuff I'm talking about here kind of does apply to Facebook. You can figure out what's that unique combination of things and try to replicate that on Facebook. But either way, you're going to have to do the research to find a display targeting list that's going to work and an ad that's going to speak to those people to be able to really scale. And in the design school situation, our display campaign got more than 10 times the customers once it was rolling, once that was set up, than the search ads, because the search was limited. In some markets, search is so robust you don't have to rely on display. So, but anyway, back to the topic at hand, the design school. Through all of our research, we found out that if a person is searching for tips or information on how to learn how to do design, which indicates right off the bat that this person is a designer and that they want to actually improve, which all designers who are doing design for a living should want to do that anyway, so it mainly just helps us figure out who's a designer, because there's no targeting option in Google Display that's graphics designers. Wish there was a targeting option list that, by profession, but there's not. We could get that if we went to a data broker, but anyway, that was what we did. So they had to be that for our combined audience segment, number one. Number two, they had to be looking for colleges recently, which is easy. The design schools, we could create a custom intent audience for all the design schools by name, so if they were looking for those design schools. And then number three, the big one that we didn't figure out right away, but that really put it over the top, was they were looking for information about financial aid. So if they were looking for a design school, we don't know that person is actually going to go to college there or go at all. If that person's going back to the sales funnel concept I was telling you about before, the person's looking for financial aid information, that person's very likely to go to that school at that point, or much, much, much more likely to go to that school at that point. So we got a graphics designer that we know who likes and wants to self-improve at the very least, who's looking at a design school, or a school that we know has a design program, and we know is looking for information on paying for that school. But not only that, if they're looking for financial aid, that means they can't afford it. And our design school, which is actually a cheaper solution, which offers even better results in terms of the knowledge that you're going to get, in terms of unit time and unit spend, actually is the perfect solution for that exact person at that exact time. Hey, we actually offer better results than typical design schools. We have higher placement. You'll learn more, and we're much cheaper. Therefore, check us out. And that was essentially what we had for an ad. So we didn't have a special offer like 20% off like we typically would do with display advertising there, but it didn't have to be, because that audience was, we did, all the work was basically done in the custom audience segment again, and getting that so narrow to just have the buyers we want, to where we just got our service out in front of them, at the right time, and it took, and that was all we had to do. So that's a general way that you would go ahead and set up a combined audience segment for your brand to run Google Display Network advertising and have it work, and to scale potentially your Google search campaigns that you're already running. Another example, I've talked about this on the channel already, was for a granite countertop installer. So, you know, granite countertops, everybody knows those already, or should. With that, it makes sense to target people who are looking for granite countertops on Google. And in that regard, yes, but like a lot of local service niches like that, a lot of those people are tire kickers. They're thinking about the idea, but they're not really into it. Much better was granite countertop installer, granite countertop supplier, granite countertop companies, so that we know that the person's ready to buy a granite countertop, not just research or look into. So for the search campaign, that was needed, but there's only so many people searching for that at any given time in a local market. Interviewing the client, we found out the most statistically likely time that somebody buys new countertops, along with that is like their best customer type in terms of profit or profitability, is somebody that's about to move in a new house and is getting the countertops installed in a new house because the house they're buying doesn't have them yet, or they're a different style that they don't want, the wife doesn't want, whatever, and that's what they want. So right off the bat, we know people who are moving soon, we want. In addition to that, people looking for new houses, not just moving, was what we wanted, so that we know not only just moving, but they're looking and buying a house, not moving into an apartment or downgrading or whatever. So we're just slimming our targeting and list down to have what you're ultimately doing is getting rid of all the slack out of your targeting, if you will, or all the slop or all the people on the list that we don't want to spend money to target, because ultimately if we're targeting too wide, you're paying to target people who will never buy, and if you get enough of those people that'll never buy on your list, your campaign won't be profitable after the cost of running the ads. So people that are ready to move, people that are looking for new houses, and what you would normally think, people that are interested in countertop installation itself on Google. So if they're looking for countertop installation, they're getting ready to move, and they're looking for new houses, we target them with a display ad for new mover special. We're offering 10% off granite countertop installation this month for new movers. So we're able, like I was saying before, if you do this, part of what makes this thing so great, the combined audience segment so great, is you can actually on your ad speak directly to the person. We knew we were targeting new movers, so we had a new mover special, which gets a higher response rate than if we didn't say new mover, so we want to take advantage of that. And of course, a person that's searching for granite countertops on Google isn't enough, but if they're looking for granite countertop installation, that makes a big difference. And so when we did our display targeting and our combined audience segment, we made sure to specify they can't just search for regular granite countertop or granite countertops on Google. They have to be looking for an installer. And so with that, there's only so many people per month in your area, if you're a granite countertop installer, the people are searching for granite countertop installation. For the whole next month, you could target that person on the Google Display Network if you know what you're doing and try to get the person that way. Of course, you could say 10% off granite countertops and so on and so forth, knowing that they're getting ready to move soon, and now have the capability to have something on a banner ad that's really going to get their attention. Now you can see how the amalgamation of all these things can go into having a really profitable display campaign going for your business already. So that was an actual use case where we did this kind of thing for another company that we work with. So, and the last example I'm going to give you here, the Italian restaurant. So this isn't so much as related to the combined audience segments as I wanted to speak a little bit more about what I was talking about down here, about these customer lists. Not enough people speak about this because it is sort of gray area, but it works so good to get offline data lists and upload them to Google. and then use those to target your customers. And by the way, if you haven't spent $50,000 a month or overall lifetime on Google already to take an email list and then upload it to Google for display network targeting, you can do through AdRoll, upload your list there. The problem is you just can't, on AdRoll, of course, target people that are on a list and this and this and this using a combined audience segment. But anyway, just wanted to throw that in there. For the Italian restaurant, you could say we could look for people looking for an Italian restaurant on Google if that you were trying to market an Italian restaurant that just opened, and go that general route. But there's only so many people searching for that, right? And if you're opening up an Italian restaurant, you need a lot of business now because your overhead's high. You want to be able to pack that thing as quick as you can. On the Google Display Network, you could search for people looking for Italian food recipes and Italian food restaurant reviews, which is obviously a lot better. But why not just go beyond all that? Why not just go find the customer list of all the other Italian restaurants in the drivable space of my Italian restaurant? If I'm just opening up an Italian restaurant, and that's what I'm trying to do is pack it. And that's doable, which most people don't even realize that you can do this. So instead of having to go through and find out what's all that makes an Italian restaurant food connoisseur, what are all the traits that make them unique, you can just bypass all that. Go find out all the people that patronize your competitors' Italian restaurants, and you're done. And you can go to American Express, and they will give you a list of all the people who eat at Italian restaurants in your general area by buying data from them. So it's not just, Experian that sells your data. That's where the real money is at. Companies like American Express, I wouldn't say it's their main money, but it's a good chunk of the money that they make is the data that they acquire from their credit card holders. So with that, you can go get that data, plug it into a custom audience list, upload that to Google. That'd be your only targeting option, and everything will just work with that in and itself. So that's a little bonus tip for you guys. You don't always want to have the combined audience segment be your key to the whole thing, because you can go beyond that if you can get access to your direct competitors' customer list sometimes. And that's the holy grail, or the best of the best usually, if you can get a hold of it. So, and that was a real use case where we did that for an Italian restaurant. I said, you need to be able to do this as quick as you can. What you need is the actual people that go to Italian restaurants already in the area that are price comparative. And so this is one of those high-end restaurants that you're talking about, $50 a plate type of situation. Well, you're not trying to compete with Olive Garden, and the people searching on Google search that are looking for Italian restaurants, a lot of them are not looking for $50 a plate either. Some, but not all. So their best of the best would just be going after the people who already go at the other high-end expensive restaurants in the area, right? So anyway, that's some food for thought as well. If you like the video, consider giving it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to this channel, as I have a ton of other strategies like this that I gave you today that we're going to offer to you for no charge, and in which we're spending a lot of time at our firm testing things out to find out what works so we can give it to you here on this channel. Stuff that works is what we're going to be handing out to you as we go along, as well as stuff that doesn't work so you can stay away from it. And if you just follow the stuff that we come out with on this channel alone, you'll be able to make enough money on PPC to be satisfied, I promise you. So I also, by the way, have a blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog with more step-by-step instructions on how to build PPC campaigns like I was talking about here today, the way that we are setting them up for clients at our firm to guarantee our clients' results, because that's our specialty here. And so if you want to learn more so how to do things on an individual basis like that, you can reach out and find our blog, which I authored myself. If you have any questions about anything I covered here today, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person that leaves me a comment on this channel. As a final note, I wanted to tell you about a brand new program that we have where we're selling turnkey PPC campaigns. If you're looking to start a new business and don't want to go through the hassle of setting up a PPC campaign, we can give you a turnkey PPC campaign that works great to literally generate millions of sales millions of dollars of sales for a client in one market, which we can give you the exact campaign that they're running to run in another market, as long as there's no direct conflict of interest, i.e. a plumber that's making millions of dollars off of a PPC campaign we built for that plumber in market A can be used in market B. You outsource all the work to another plumber in market B and have a business ready to go out of the box simply just by having the gold-plated PPC campaign that works in the plumbing space. We have product-related PPC campaigns, but you could sell products that those campaigns are outdated, they still make money, client ended up with going after something else. Those campaigns, you can use those to run a profitable e-commerce business and use the exact campaign that they were using and know the kind of results they were getting at that time and to use it for yourself without any trial and error at all. So then you might be in a market where we already have the results already done and we can give you the exact campaign for you to use, and you don't have to go through all the hassle that we did testing things out for years, building things up. So if you're interested in that stuff, you can reach out to my firm as well. We can tell you about the different markets and opportunities we have and campaigns we have set up to for the different markets that we're in and that you could potentially use. So I'll wrap it up with that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and got some good knowledge out of it. And I hope to see you in my next video where we have another good strategy for you to be able to make more money with your PPC. See you there.